It was a pretty bad shooting night for the Kentucky Wildcats against WKU, and at the end of the day, it really didn't matter.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be recapping Kentucky basketball's 87-68 win over the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. Things kind of went awry in this game, and the Wildcats still won by 19 points. Going to dive into the good, going to dive into the bad. What do we see out there? This type of game frustrates me to no end. Just the style of play that Western Kentucky wanted to execute. It was incredibly frustrating, but hey, it made things extremely competitive. We'll dive into what happened here on today's show. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, you can create an account, and you can use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you are watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. All right, let's go ahead and get into it really quickly at the top here. We started a new segment last week called Mark It Down, where on Mondays and Fridays, I'm going to give you a hot take prediction about the upcoming couple of games or upcoming game. And I actually got both of my predictions right. We'll play the little sticker here for you on YouTube if you're watching there. Kentucky, as of right now, has accomplished both things that I predicted would happen. I said, mark it down, Kentucky basketball will be inside the top 30 in adjusted offensive efficiency by the time they are done with Jackson State and Western Kentucky, and that is true. Kentucky right now ranked 27th in adjusted defensive efficiency, and I said this would be the worst shooting game and a Kentucky opponent will have this season, and come to find out, believe it or not, and yes, Jackson State shot incredibly poorly from the floor, but Western Kentucky ended up shooting worse. Jackson State as a team shot 33% from the floor. In this game, Western Kentucky shot 31.8%. So this is the worst shooting game a Kentucky opponent has had this season. So got both of those things correct. Hopefully we'll continue to push along here with our predictions on Mark It Down, but we'll go ahead and start here at the top with that shooting percentage, 31.8. Kentucky's defense went out there and they did exactly what I expected them to do. This is a Western Kentucky team that likes to play with tempo, that likes to play aggressive up and down the court, but they put up some wild shots. And it leads to some inefficiencies. It leads to maybe some rebounds that they grab that they normally don't. And both of those things happened in this game. Western Kentucky put up 66 shots. That's 4 more than Kentucky was able to put up. Of course, Kentucky absolutely blitzed them at the free throw line, despite Western Kentucky taking 29 of their own, which we'll get into later on in the show. But the Wildcats still able to hold their own defensively against some of the big-time players for Western Kentucky. If you look at McHenry, who was the lead guard, averaging, I believe, 17 points heading into this game, he was 3 of 16 from the floor. He had 9 points. He was 1 of 7 from beyond the arc. He had 4 personal fouls to go along with that in 2 minutes. The player that I said would be the biggest issue on offense as far as matchups goes was Babacar. I believe it's Faye is how they were pronouncing it on the broadcast, or Faye. He was efficient. He had 16 points. He had 6 rebounds. He did end up fouling out after 23 minutes, but he was the guy down low. And Kentucky didn't have a phenomenal answer for him, especially on the offensive glass, where he would just seemingly come in and make a play. Now, I will say there were 3 separate occasions that it was pretty clear that he traveled, and I think the broadcast pointed it out one time, but the officials were not calling it travel tonight. I mean, you could have taken a trip up and down the court without taking a dribble, and the officials would have just been like, oh, it looks fine to me. But this was defensively a smattering. This is what I expected Kentucky to go out there and do. And yet, the opponent still scored 68 points. I said I didn't think Western Kentucky would score more than 65. I had them scoring 63 in this game. I think I said 63-92 was my final score. 87-68 ends up being the actual final score. And it has to do with what Western Kentucky did at the foul line. Western Kentucky heading into this game struggled to get to the charity stripe. They do not overly rely on free throws. And yet they were still able to get 22 of their 68 points. So essentially a third of their points from the free throw line. That is incredibly high. I do not expect Kentucky to run into an opponent like this again, where you come into a game, you say, well, they're not good at this, and this, and they end up being dramatically better in one statistical category than you anticipated. 22 of 29 from the foul line. They ended up picking up. I think Kentucky only had 20 fouls in this game, but so many of them were shooting fouls, and they just kept putting the Hilltoppers on the free throw line, and they executed at a pretty solid rate. Faye was 6 of 6 from the charity stripe. McHenry got 2 of his 9 points from there. Thedford was 7 of 10 from the charity stripe. He had 7 of his 18 points from there in his 24 minutes of play. Incredibly annoying. I hate free throw shooting contest type games. There are multiple teams within this league that like to play that way. Texas A&M, I'm looking at you. What used to be South Carolina, I'm looking at you. I despise that style of play where you know that you are athletically you are at a disadvantage athletically. You cannot shoot as well in a half-court or transition game. So what you resort to is physical bully ball, trying to get the officials on your side. I hate that style of play. I respect good defense, which Western Kentucky had at different points in this game. But, man, I do not like the teams that come out there and they're just like, yep, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to try and get every single call to go our way, and that's just what we're going to bank on. We're going to hope that the officials call it whenever we try and draw fouls, and we're going to hope that they don't do it whenever the opposite happens, whenever you try and drive in. Of course, there were a ton of fouls called in this game. You can look to a team like Iowa State, for example, if you were watching Maui. That's a team that's like, we will hand check you and we will throw our bodies into you every single possession looking for a turnover. And if the officials don't call it, we're going to beat the ever-living snot out of you. And if they do call it, then it's going to be a little bit of a difficult game. Western Kentucky did a little bit of that tonight. Kentucky at different points. I don't understand what was going on defense. There was a lot of, there were holds, there were pushes, there were this is not what you want to do if you're trying to completely dominate your opponent. Frankly, is yes, you played very well on defense in terms of efficiency, but also stop fouling. Stop play defense without fouling, please. Maybe it's just the style of play here, but Wildcats get it done on one end. There were some very annoying things stylistically, I think, that Western Kentucky tried to do that they were able to execute or get away with flat out. Kentucky fell prey to it at different times. They still, again, the team shot 31.8% from the floor. I mean, that's pretty dang good. Just 4 of 26 from 3, an absolute smattering there. I did not think Western Kentucky would be able to keep up from beyond the arc, but frankly, Kentucky's offense didn't play very well at all, and yet they still almost put up 90. So that's where I want to shift my focus here to continue along on a recap episode. What was going on with Kentucky's offense tonight? We'll dive into that in just a second. Before I do that, though, I do want to tell you guys about our friends over at Game Time. If you want to go and find yourself in a college basketball environment, whether that be Maui, whether it be Rupp, whether it be some neutral site, whether it be the battle in Seattle here against Gonzaga here, if it's the SEC ACC Challenge, if you want to go to Clemson, South Carolina, there's no better place for you to go to get tickets to any sort of college basketball event than Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier, and it filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They've also got seat views before you buy. They've got the lowest price guarantee. They've got all-in prices. So whenever you go and look for a ticket, you know exactly what you're paying for up front. You don't get to the end and all of a sudden see like so much money charged onto it with fees and stuff. It is the app to go to. I've loved using them, not just for sports, but comedy, theater, concerts, anything near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time Picks by downloading the Game Time app, creating an account, and using code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, continuing along here on the Tuesday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys found this game as annoying as I did, I would encourage you, leave a comment below. Tell me what you thought about this contest. Was it good? Was it bad? The fact that Kentucky was still able to win by 19 and they had so many frustrating things happen, I think it's refreshing. I mean, you score 87 points. I mean, yes, you can come out of this saying, okay, there's different things that we need to talk about and address that are problems, but also you won by 19 points against a top third team in the country on Ken Palm. I mean, like, can you really be that upset with it? Well, I say all of that. And I do want to address the offense. Western Kentucky's defense is good. I want to be clear on that. They're good. They went up 8 spots after playing Kentucky. Giving up 87 points, they went up 8 spots on defense because of just how inefficient the Cats were. Kentucky put up 62 shots. They only made 25. They shot 40.5% from the floor. They shot 35.5% in the second half. It was abysmal. They shot 27.6% from 3, and they took 42 free throw attempts because Western Kentucky would not stop fouling, but they took 42 free throw attempts and made 29, 69%. They were 66% in the second half. That is inexcusable. You cannot be that poor from the charity stripe. To be honest with you, a lot of it starts with 2 players, and it was mostly, honestly, Amari Williams who was struggling. Let's go ahead and address this and get back to the offense. Amari Williams, so far this season, as a starting center for the Kentucky Wildcats, has struggled in ways that I have not expected him to struggle. Offensively, he is extremely underwhelming to me. Through these first 6 games, I'm calling it like it is. He has the ability to play significantly better than what he has shown through these first 6 games. I think some of it's decision-making. I think some of it's surrounding. He has not been as efficient as you would like him to be from 2. He's shooting only 52% from inside the arc. Furthermore, he has been incredibly underwhelming from the charity stripe. He is shooting only, 55%? 55% from the line. He shot 66% last year. So he has the ability to shoot decently well for his size and ability from the charity stripe. He's not showing that. So he hasn't been able to shoot in the paint. He puts up these awkward floaters or these awkward little drop shots that just are not on target at all. And he can't make a free throw. His only redeeming factor, and it's a pretty good one, is that he is an incredible defensive rebounder. He has been really, really, really good on the defensive glass. That's the reason you got to keep putting him out there and playing him as much as you do. That's the only reason I have for you right now. Because on top of all this, on top of not being able to shoot and having bad decisions on offense, he has an insanely high turnover rate. He had 6 turnovers tonight, and a lot of them were just not good decisions with the ball. 26.7% turnover rate. There is only one player that has a higher assist rate on the roster than that. That's Carr. 26.7%. Yeah, it's 6 turnovers tonight. It's just not good basketball from Amari Williams. It's just not. I expect him to step up. I expect him at some point to turn the corner. I think a lot of it, again, is fixable because a lot of it is simply just decision-making. I don't think that it's ability. He has the ability to play better. Right now, Brandon Garrison looks like the better center. Yes, I know Brandon Garrison also has a couple of different decision-making issues, but hey, Brandon Garrison also has the second best assist rate on the team. He's got one of the lowest turnover rates on the team as well. He grabs rebounds at a decent pace. He shoots better from the charity stripe. He shoots better from the floor. He also, if I'm not mistaken, has a higher steal percentage. Both of these players are pretty decent when it comes to blocks. I mean, you can split time between these two guys and just kind of figure it out from there. But Amari, as one of the more valuable pickups in the portal, and again, the defensive rebounding is big, and the defense can be big as well. He's not shown enough to me, and I know that he can play better. I'm confident that he can play better. So we'll see. We will see. But Williams, 8 points tonight. He was 1 of 4 from the floor. He was 6 of 10 from the foul line. Outside of that, he was able to kind of fill it up statistically in a lot of different ways. He had 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 6 turnovers again, 4 blocks, and 19 minutes of play. All of those statistics, and yet he finished with a +9 +- There were 5 different players that had a higher +-, despite him, again, having 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and 4 blocks, inefficient shooting, and really bad turnovers, and a couple of defensive lapses as well. The offense as a whole could not shoot threes tonight. They tried. They were not able to get them to fall. Some of them were just simply rushed shots. You saw this at different points in the preseason where Kentucky would just have stretches where it just looked like they were chucking shots up, expecting them to go in. There have been different points this season where you have seen Kentucky run offense and put up a similar amount of threes, but it's a different way that they go about it, right? The looks are more open. The looks are more well-timed. There's better pacing and flow to it. Kobe Brea put up a couple shots tonight that just did, like we saw in the preseason whenever he was struggling in the preseason. Like, that's not the shot that you want as a really good shooter. You have to pace yourself better. He found that in the second half. He finished 3 of 7 from beyond the arc. Good stuff there. Jackson Robinson, 2 of 8 from 3, 2 of 9 from beyond the arc. He's another player that has, again, struggled, shooting just 32% from beyond the arc. Not great, not terrible. Oh, it's an 87-point victory where you shot incredibly, or 87 points and a 19-point victory where you shot incredibly poorly. You had your starting center turn the ball over 6 times, and you had a couple different defensive lapses, and the other team wouldn't stop fouling. Yet you were still able to win. There are some positive performances on the floor here, though, tonight. 2 of which I am just stunned at how good a couple of these pieces on this Kentucky roster are. And they've just continued to be good. Like, there's not really been a drop-off. It's just like, hey, we've been good all the start of the season long. So let's give those guys some praise here in just a moment. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. You can tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if they win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, wrapping up the Tuesday edition of Locked On Kentucky. So we're recapping Kentucky basketball's 87-68 win over the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. Some positives: defense went out there, shut things down, despite some frustrations from the foul line. Offense, this is the worst shooting performance of the year, and they still managed to score 87 points, most of which they got from the foul line. Western Kentucky muddied things up in this game. Kentucky still came out on top. We expect more from Amari Williams. We will see how that goes. I'm hopeful for him. I don't want to just sit here and bash the kid. Obviously, it's been a slow start to the season. But again, I want to reiterate this so you guys understand that what I'm saying here. He will perform better. I expect him to perform better. It's not just like, well, he sucks and it's over. No, I expect him to play better. Speaking of kids that are just flat out playing better for Kentucky right now, Andrew Carr and Otega Oweh. Those are the two players I want to highlight here to wrap up the show. Both players scored 18 points apiece. Otega Oweh, 18 points, 6 of 14 from the floor, 1 of 3 from beyond the arc. He had 4 rebounds in 32 minutes of play, plus 22 in the plus-minus box score, and that led the team, which is surprising. Lamont Butler also had a plus-minus of 21. He had 14 points. He had 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 1 steal in 28 minutes of play. Good stuff from your starting guard. But Andrew Carr, man, another player on this Kentucky team where it's just like, man, he was such a valuable pickup in the portal. Andrew Carr, with those 18 points that I mentioned, 6 of 8 from the floor, 6 of 8 from the foul line, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block, plus 21. In 29 minutes, I might add. You've got 3 guys, essentially, that are carrying the load for you right now, and that's Otega Oweh, Andrew Carr, and Kobe Brea. In terms of scoring, Lamont Butler has been a pretty solid glue guy. He had 4 assists with no turnovers. Team, by the way, tonight, 16 assists to 11 turnovers. Not the best mark there. Kentucky can do better, but again, Western Kentucky was just really aggressive on defense. Those are the guys that are carrying the load for you right now. Oweh, Carr, Brea. Otega, by the way, I think he's averaging almost 17 points a game right now. And he's going to be back unless something crazy happens. He's going to be back next season as what should be an All-American type player because he can play legitimate defense with a decent three-point shot to boot, and he can score very physically at the rim. And he's a decent foul line shooter as well. You've got so many pieces that you have to be excited about right now for Kentucky, where you can look at a game like this. It's frustrating, yes, but you're still able to pull it out with a pretty solid margin. And nobody really has you don't have any major concerns. Yes, Amari Williams, one thing, but man, you're still one of the best three-point shooting teams in the nation. You still got one of the best effective field goal percentages in the nation. You now lead the country in three-point defense at 21.2%. You're still top 75 in two-point percentage, which that number has continued to improve. I mean, the only thing that is like, oh, Kentucky is like bad at this is creating turnovers. Everything else they do a good job of. They prevent offensive rebounds. They prevent teams from getting to the foul line a ton. They, again, play defense inside out. They block a ton. It's solid. It's really solid stuff from Kentucky's defense. So far, we'll see if they can keep it up. You got Georgia State on Friday. That one's going to be it's going to be an interesting matchup, I'll say that. Georgia State, not the best in the world, but they can shoot the three. So we'll see how it goes. And their lead guard, or lead player, I should say, his last name is Nutter. I just want to throw that out there. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at LanceDaw_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.